This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Text code JAMES to 500-500 to get 10% off your next purchase. The first 100 people to sign up using the link in the description will receive an extra 600 silver and a free champion. Gosh. I hope I don't get sued. Anyway, I'm doing a daily art challenge for the month of October called Oc-Tober, created by Twitter user Sarah Dant. I'm grouping the first week of prompts together because I got a late start, but I still want to catch up and do my best to participate for the whole month. All 6 drawings took about 2 days total, so please pray for my wrist. For those unfamiliar, OC stands for Original Character, so let's get started. The prompt for day 1 was your first ever OC, so I had to do a bit of digging. This OC, Avery Bennett, I drew him in 7th grade back in 2011, and I was so proud. You can see him on the screen right now, but it's rough, not gonna lie. I was definitely using very simple shapes, and I still do that to a degree, but those shapes are a little more refined these days, I guess I could say. He definitely looks very rectangular. And the funny thing is, after I drew him that one time, I never drew him ever again. He had no backstory. He was just some character that I put on a piece of paper one time, and that was it, and he was done. And I never revisited the concept, and I just kept going. So I guess it makes sense that I completely forgot about him. So yeah, the sketch I made for him, the pose, is definitely very generic. Because when I think about him nowadays, it just reminds me of my middle school and high school experience. So I guess I just kind of modeled him after that. I didn't change his outfit, as cringy as it is, but at the time I gave him the clothes that I wanted to wear. So it's not really a redesign of the character, it's just as is, which, you know, I mean, it's fine. It's definitely not a terrible design, but I can definitely do better these days. And next up for day 2, we have my latest OC. This guy I drew in 2017, so at least 3 years ago. And I just finished ragging on my first OC for looking plain, but this guy has a little bit more going on. At least I think so. So this character's name is Holland, playing off of hollandaise sauce, which I thought was really clever at the time. But Holland is essentially like a terminal cancer patient. But the strange thing about them is that it's not necessarily cancer. They incubate an eldritch power that manifests itself every time that Holland is in emotional distress or takes physical harm. And it takes a different form every time because Holland is incubating a infantile god, essentially. So a lot of the time they're super lethargic, very lazy, constantly eating everybody's food, which I thought was funny because Holland is, from the reference photos, you can tell they're very skinny and very emaciated. But they're just constantly eating and eating and eating just to feed this thing that is inside of them. So yeah, I definitely enjoy the concept of Holland a bit more than Avery Bennett on the whole, just because they're so different. But I mean, I never really went anywhere with Holland just because I designed them right before the great art drought of 2018 that led into 2020. So, Alright, next up is my boy Vin. He goes under the alias Voidance, and he's the OC of my friend Necrowoofer over on Tumblr. Voidance's whole deal is that he's possessed by a shadow demon named Spook, and it allows him to manipulate shadow stuff, so he can kind of like create blades, smoke, fog, all out of darkness. So obviously he uses his power to rob banks, mug people, all of that kind of like roguish, not super legal stuff. I guess I kind of latched onto him as a character simply because he's so different from my own OCs, simply because I'm a good wholesome boy. Plus, Zero, the artist that draws him, just imbued him with so much natural charisma. I have such a hard time imbuing that into my own artwork that I was just kind of drawn to it. So, chef's kiss. The particular pose that I drew him in was kind of like he was flying out of a window and just kind of like waving at whoever he just mugged or something like that. I don't know. I feel like it kind of fell short, but either way it was fun to draw. Plus, I noticed all of these little details that I don't remember Vin having, which was a little bit stressful because my characters are like really simplified and Vin just has a lot of detail, especially with his padded boots and knee pads and his belt pouches and all of this other accoutrement and small little zippers, and it was just a stressful time all around. So Zero, if you're watching this, I'm suing you for emotional damages. Day 4 is siblings, and when it came to this prompt I had a choice to make, because I have a pair of twins, and then I also have a family of 13 children. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I wanted to do the 13, but if I wanted to live through the next couple of days, I definitely needed to do the twins. The yellow one is named Lux, and the purple one is named Nox, but when they're conjoined, their name is Equinox. They're a particular monster that I kind of homebrewed for D&D called Geists, and they're mask spirits that can basically act as like a minor warlock patron, offering magical power in exchange for a soul, essentially. It's kind of like minor lichdom, but with like ghostly etherealness tacked on as well. The way that their masks work is that you gain access to particular spells once you put the mask on, and Equinox is special in that their mask can be joined into one mask, or you can split them off into two separate masks. Lux's mask provides light magic and Nox's provides shadow magic, and they can be used in tandem for twilight magic. This drawing is particularly heinous because I remember in the original artwork that I did for them, I didn't want to draw them twice, so I just flipped them and they were mirror images, so I didn't have to draw two separate people. And then I got frustrated drawing the second piece, so I did the same thing again. Please don't judge me. I've been drawing a lot over the past couple of days and my arm hurts and I'm tired. Anyway, day 5 is Kiss, and I don't have any OCs that are in relationships, so I kind of had to think outside the box for this one. I remembered a specific D&D character that I had way back when, named Galder, and he had a magic sentient bow named Jordmir. They were kind of like based on Norse myth, but with a twist, because Galder was undead, kind of like the myth of Balder and the sprig of mistletoe that killed him, but Jordmir was the bow that killed him specifically. He was an arcane archer, and I had so much fun with it because Jordmir could shoot different types of elemental arrows, And it was just so fun because roleplay wise, they would kind of try and out-snark each other. They were both just so ornery, but Galder was definitely a little bit more playful with it, whereas Jordmir would be like more pissed about it. So I just imagine him getting like so upset at the concept of his wielder kissing him, and it just makes me chuckle every time. But drawing it was a bit of a challenge simply because I'd only ever drawn the bow once, and you can tell just by looking at it I never planned to draw it a second time, which made the perspective so difficult and so hard. I would never wish that on anybody. Alrighty, and for day number 6, we have Rivals. For this prompt, I chose to use 2 superhero OCs, Codex and Carbon. Codex is the smaller of the two, and Carbon is the large bone man. When designing Codex, I was really enamored with the concept of symbiotes from the Marvel Universe, so I really wanted to design a character with that kind of thing going on, but at the same time I wanted to add some uniqueness to the character. So Philip Langdon, Codex's alter ego, is actually a mutant, like the X-Men. Basically, he has extrasensory organs on his fingertips that allow him to read the genetic structure of anything that he touches. Although this power is mostly for just detecting cancer by itself, so that's why I gave him the symbiote, because the symbiotes have a genetic memory, so he's able to store that genetic code within the symbiote, thus calling it Codex. So it's basically a library of genetic material for him to use to basically create new superpowers on the fly. Granted, this power has limitations, simply because he has to get new genetic material every time, and when he's creating new powers, he might not be proficient with those powers. Plus, when he's using it for a power, he has to burn through it kind of like gas, so he only has a set time limit based on how much he's absorbed. So I really enjoy the concept of Codex, and I have for a long time. Carbon was kind of created after Codex. He was kind of an offspring of Codex in a sense, simply because his backstory included Codex in his origin, because Joseph Zier, the police officer that became Carbon, was suffering from a genetic disease called fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, basically FOP for short, and it's a genetic disorder that causes bone tissue to grow into soft tissue. So basically, you'll eventually just turn into a giant bone statue, which sucks for obvious reasons because it's very painful and you lose mobility over time. But all that aside, the basic idea behind Carbon was that Codex was trying to actively save his life by manipulating his genetic code, which he had never done before. So it kind of backfired because at the same time he was trying to actively reverse the effects of the disease. So he ended up merging his bone cells with his muscle cells, so they kind of became the same thing. It's weird. But the general gist of it is that he's in a fictional world, so it works out instead of just ruining his life or killing him. So drawing these two was so difficult because I went through maybe 6 or 7 different iterations of different poses just for the two of them. And I don't think I've ever been able to describe any of my drawings as voluptuous before, but when I was drawing Codex, I hadn't drawn muscles in forever, like multiple years, so I was having a difficult time. So I'm just like, balloons, he's a balloon man. So it's like you can tell, like I've never drawn anything like that before. I wasn't trying to give him a bubble butt, but that's kind of what happened anyway. So like, enjoy that, I guess. So, with all that said, I'm going to skip day 7 because the prompt is yourself, and y'all generally know that I already look like a discount Ribinator, so I'm gonna pick it back up on day 8, which is hopefully the same day that this video is gonna be posted. So, wear your seatbelt. That's copyright, never mind. Drive unsafely, and goodbye.